If you remember from course 2, we used a plugin called Sapphire. We use the shake effect. The first effect we're going to do is transform. We're going to keyframe scale, and I want to zoom in dramatically and then zoom out right at the end. So we'll make this keyframe and leave it at the beginning. We'll go towards the end, zoom it in. We'll copy and paste the first keyframe to the end. Easy values, and then go into the graph editor. If you don't see this, make sure you're on value graph. The first point we want to come in fast, so we're going to go straight up. And we're going to drag this one down into the left. And we also want it to go out the same way it came in. Now we're going to add the shake, in which we learned from the previous course. I already have my preset set up, so I'm going to use that preset. So far, I like the way everything turned out. It's not overly edited. A lot of things I see people do is adding too many effects where they don't need to be. Unless you can envision or see that it needs effects somewhere to add more emphasis, then I wouldn't add in effects. I'm going to add in a couple more shakes. All I'm going to do is copy and paste the original file we did. If you're new to making adjustment layers, all you want to do is go to Layer, New, Adjustment Layer, or press Ctrl-Alt-Y. Adjustment layer is where I like to put effects so it doesn't affect anything with the time warp. So let's copy the shake and see where we can put it. I'm going to put a shake right here so you can't see the rotation change as much. Let's press U and adjust the keyframe. I'm going to duplicate this one again onto the GTR layer. I'm also going to add another shake right here to where it reverses. We'll shorten the length of this. I'm going to add one right here on the Corvettes clip. As the song rises up, you can hear a few beats here. I might want to add in a little bit of shakes, maybe 3 or 4 of them. We're going to make these shorter shakes as well. You can always look back at your song to find those points. We're going to go with 3 shakes. And we're going to have the last shake on the last clip. I want to transition for this last clip as well. I'm going to duplicate this layer. I'm going to right click, go to time, freeze frame. Drag this out about 5 frames. And let's mask the car out and we'll have it coming from the left to the right. We're going to feather this to 3. Make sure we enable motion blur right here. Make sure this is enabled up here as well to show the motion blur. Keyframe anchor point. Drag the original keyframe to the beginning. Before we can move this out, we gotta disable time warp. This effect only works if your first frame is the frame you're freezing. For example, for this clip right here, this gray area in which we cropped out, if I try to duplicate freeze frame this, it won't line up the same. So we go to time, freeze frame, you can see it shifts over. So it's not the same frame anymore. A way to fix this is just by trimming your pre-comp and then adjusting this back. Time warp disabled, we can actually delete it. Anchor point, let's drag it to the left. I'm going to add in another transition here of all 3 of these cars coming from the top to the bottom. So we'll duplicate that, go to freeze frame, drag it out a little bit more than 5, go to the beginning, disable time warp, and let's mask them out. Another trick you can do is by duplicating this layer 3 times and making all these cars separate. But since you can't see the full car, the mask wouldn't look good since only this would be masked out. So for this clip, we're going to do all 3 together. This is more of a fast mask. You don't need to get into detail with the mask by zooming in all the way, just because we're going to be adding motion blur, and when it moves, you won't see anything. So we're going to anchor point this, drag the original frame to the end, bring it up, out of frame, and make sure motion blur is enabled. And as you can see, you won't really be able to see it. So to save time, just do a rough mask. I'm going to do these types of transitions now throughout the video. If your subject isn't fully in frame, then I recommend your object come in from where it's clipping from. So right here, I have no choice but going left to right or up or down. As you can see, it would clip out right here, and it just wouldn't look good. Let's have it come in from the top. Since I had this one come from the top, I'm not going to have this one come from the top too. Have this come in from the left. So same thing, we'll freeze frame, mask, disable time warp, and then we'll anchor point it left to right, and motion blur. Now that we have everything set up how we want it, let's add in the motion blur. So let's add a new adjustment layer, and under effects, let's look up motion blur. We're going to be using CC Force motion blur. I personally use plugins, but here's the settings you can use to have a good motion blur. I set the blur samples to around 55 and the shutter angle to around 35 to 60. If you go too much, it'll start warping. So adjust this until you're satisfied. In my opinion, this motion blur is not the best, so I don't use this. The motion blur I use is called RSMB. RSMB Pro allows you to get a lot more realistic motion blur. The one down to using RSMB is sometimes it'll give you render errors and sometimes it'll take really long. I'll add RSMB after I render. Here's the settings I use for RSMB Pro if you do want to use this plugin. Another thing to note is whenever you have your settings dialed in, you can click on your effect, go to animation, and save animation preset. This is how you can save your animation presets. So for this one, I'll call it RSMB. So if you ever want to use that preset and not have to do it again, go to animation presets, use presets, and then you can drag it on. All your settings will still be there. Everything looks good, but I do want to lower the highlights for the beginning of this clip. I like the overexpose, but as I said, when you post this to social media, this will be overly bright. So what we're going to do is, we're going to apply a Lumetri color straight to this clip. We're going to go to curves, and we're going to lower the highlights just a little bit. You want to make sure you have just enough not to make the sky warp. If you go too much, you'll see warping, and if you go too low, you'll see warping again. So let's make it just about right, and then we'll dial it in with highlights. Under basic correction, the highlights. Right around here is where we want the highlights to go back up. So we're going to keyframe highlights, go right around here, set this back to 0, and that'll be just enough. And then towards the end, we'll increase it a little bit more. I'm going to do the same thing for this first clip, but I don't need a keyframe. Let's see what we have now. Everything looks great to me. I'm going to use the render settings that we learned in course 1, and then I'm going to add the RSMB, logos, and intros. By 16 or 10 this scene together. How's it going, everyone? Here's the breakdown on how I did this video. First thing you want to do is bring in your clips. Just like the other course, let's get all our files in and let's get our timeline set up. Let's pre-compose, we'll trim this up, stabilize, and add some crop and rotation. If your warp stabilizer ever freezes like this, all you have to do is delete your warp stabilizer and restart After Effects. Another way to avoid this is if you go to your Advanced tab and you click Fast Analysis. If you uncheck this, it'll take longer, but it's most likely that it won't freeze. Since we are pre-composing all these clips, you can always add your warp stabilizer at the end, just so you don't waste any time. You can see I already have the main key points set on this song, so let's get our time warp in here, drag that on. For this one, we're going to set it to whole frames, and make sure your speed is set to 100. If you do want to do speed under 100, you have to change whole frames to pixel motion. That'll help blend in the frames. If you don't change this from whole frames to pixel motion when going under 100, it might get choppy. So it's keyframe speed. Press U to open our keyframes. Drag this inside. We'll paste 2 slow keyframes in the middle. And let's start off with around 1000. just so we can see where we want to start. Select these, press FN9, or right click, Keyframe Assistant, Easy Ease. Let's go into our graph. And for this one, we're going to hold shift and go straight out. If you don't see this, make sure you have it set to value graph. Either one works, but I like to use value graph. For the slowdown keyframes, we're going to hold shift, drag it out. Instead of dragging it down for a more aggressive speed ramp, I'm going to have it flat so it has a smoother U. Let's increase this value even more. Let's go to around 2000 since this clip is kind of slow. You also want to make sure you adjust your clip to where you want it to be. So we'll go right here into the gray area, or you can go up here and click on this tool and you can drag and adjust. I'm going to add some scale and rotation in here. S for scale, R for rotation, keyframe them, and then drag your original values to the end. Since this clip is going from in to out, we want the original keyframes at the end. So we'll zoom in and rotate. Since this is a longer clip as well, we're going to drag this out to the second keyframe. We're going to copy these, and we're going to paste them right here on this last speed value. Adjust the keyframes as you need. And then make sure you double check these keyframes to make sure nothing changed in the graph. Usually when you copy and paste, something will be changed. So right here, the center keyframe, we'll just drag that back in. We're not going to add any effects until we're done setting up our timeline. You want to see the whole video first before you start adding in effects so you know what you want to put in there. So let's move on to the second clip. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to stabilize, scale, rotate. For this one, I'm going to do the same rotation. And to make things even easier, we're just going to copy and paste this time warp right here. Open up your keyframes with U. And let's make sure these are all aligned to our key markers. Adjust the footage to where you want it to be. Adjust these values if you need to. I'm going to lower the middle speed keyframe just a little bit. Now that this is done, let's move on to our third clip. Same thing applies. Let's copy and paste our time warp. And we're only going to do one beat for this one. Make sure our footage ends at our key marker and delete these last three values. Let's double check our graphs. Let's move on to the next clip. Do the same method, time warp, copy and paste. Make sure these are all pre-composed too. Since you already learned how to pre-compose like this, I'm not going to show that. Make sure everything lines up. Since every clip is recorded at a different speed, you want to make sure that you really dial in the speed values. You don't want it to be too fast to where it doesn't flow anymore. And as you can see with these two clips, the reason I chose these clips is because they go in the same rotation. So this one is going from right to left, and then this one's going right to left as well. Little details like this really go a long way when you're really trying to bring in that flow. So let me show you what I have so far, just by copy and pasting just these first values. Now that the intro's done, let's move on into the main clips. For this one, I added an interior shot from the Honda. We're going to do the same thing, copy and paste our time warp. Adjust our values to the key markers. So right here in the song, the beat kind of changes up and there's some sound effects in here. So what I want to do is have a longer clip, and instead of speed ramping all those sound markers, I'm going to add in some effects on the cars themselves. Copy and paste the same time warp that we've been doing. And I want it to end right around here where the bass drops again. So we'll drag this out. We're going to grab these two keyframes and drag this to the end. We're also going to move the slow down values so it eases in and eases out of the clip. We're going to adjust the speed just a little bit as well. For time warp, once you run out of frames, you'll notice that nothing happens and it's just frozen there. So you just want to keep dialing in your speed to make sure you don't get that. Another good plugin I like to use is called Twixtor, but since not everybody has Twixtor, I'm just showing this with time warp. But if you are able to purchase Twixtor, I highly recommend it. It's a very similar method. It does allow you to get a smoother speed ramp, and you can go to very slow values such as 5%. So let's adjust this time warp until we have enough usable area. You can drag these as well. So for this clip, since I am going to do some effects here, I'm going to show you what it looks like when you slow down the footage. So for this second slowdown keyframe, instead of 100, let's double click it and let's set this to 50. Once you set it to 50, make sure you change whole frames to pixel motion. And depending on your footage, you might need to dial in some settings. As you can see here, it looks a little bit warped. So make sure you open up tuning. Let's check build from one image. Let me change the quality into full as well so you can see what I'm talking about. Without this checked, you'll see it's a little bit warped. It's trying to make up those frames itself. So let's click that and just adjust your smoothness and local smoothness until you get what you need. When I do add in motion blur, it will get rid of some of these effects. and it'll look more natural, but we'll do that at the end. So let's see what we got so far, and then let's finish off the timeline. We're doing this pretty quick, and this is something you shouldn't stress too much about, but the more practice you put in and the more practice you put with your graphs and footage and filming, it'll be a lot easier and you'll know exactly what you're looking for. Another thing I like to do when I'm editing, since I am recording in S-Log3, so all my footage looks kind of dull, it's not always fun to edit dull footage. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add in Lumetri Color. For this one, I'm going to be adding in my 709 file, which is my S-Log3 conversion file. I'm also going to add in my look, my cinematic look. It's not going to slow down the editing process as much, but it is going to give me something better to look at. It's more motivating when you have color graded footage, and this is also going to come in handy when we do add effects in. If you add an effect such as glow or rays or anything that shines or has color, your color grade will mess with it and you don't want it to be overexposed. So go ahead and add an adjustment layer. To do that, you go Layer, New, Adjustment Layer, or you can right click into Dead Space, go New, Adjustment Layer, go to your effects and add in Lumetri Color, and then drag in your LUTs in there. Or you can color grade it by hand if you want to. As you can see, I only made slight adjustments. I also add sharpening around 35%, just because my S-Log does need some detail sharpening. So saying this, let's move on. I did notice some warping down here, so I am going to adjust my values a little bit more, such as vector detail and the smoothness, and maybe my iterations as well. Let's keep going on and not get too distracted over here. Add in your next clip, compose, stabilize, all that good stuff in the pre-comp. Let's add in our next clip, copy and paste the time warp. Make sure, once again, make sure everything is pre-composed, scaled, stabilized. If your stabilizer is freezing, add that at the end. So we'll paste this in here. Let's drag this out because I do want it to end right around here. This copy and paste method is very fast, very efficient, and you can really get work done as fast as you need it to be. I know a lot of people like to take their time and speed ramp each clip individually, but if you give yourself a starting point to work off of, things can go by much faster and you really can see what you're working with. Since the song changes right here again, I'm going to add in a longer clip as well. We're going to copy and paste our last time warp, open up the keyframes, and I want this to end right around here. Like the other example in this course, I like to work with complex songs that do have beat switches and changes up throughout the song. It gives you a variety of different styles you can add into or incorporate into the video. If you have a song that has a simple beat every 3 seconds, then that video is something very easy to make. You just copy and paste all your time warps and you'll be done within an hour. But for this one, I like to switch it up. Let me show you what we have so far. Everything looks great. We're going to add in our last clip. Then we're going to get to the fun part of dialing in effects, transitions, and make any adjustments that we need. Copy and paste your time warp. We're going to have this one stretch out as well. So now, let's see what we have overall, and then we can start seeing where we want effects and what we want as effects. The video is turning out exactly how I want it to be. And the first thing I'm going to do, since this is a more upbeat song, I'm going to add in shakes for most of these clips. For my first round of effects, I'm going to do shakes. So what we're going to do is you're going to press Ctrl-Alt-Y or Layer, New, Adjustment Layer. Click on your adjustment layer, Alt-right bracket to trim. I'm going to go ahead and add in my shake presets, which you already have. For this one, I'm going to add in my standard shake. We're going to press U to view the keyframes, and it works out perfectly. So we're going to cut it right here at the next beat point. We're going to copy and paste, and we're going to snap this shake to the next beat point. So now we have a double shake for this one clip. We're going to do the same thing for the next clip. we're going to copy and paste these two adjustment layers, which are the shake. You can also organize all your layers by right clicking and renaming. So we'll name this shake. So now if we ever need it and we have a lot of adjustment layers on here, we'll know what the shake is. Click on this layer and then paste it. So paste it on top of that layer. Then we're going to hit left bracket to snap it here. Once again, we're going to our next beat point. We're going to copy and paste that shake. And we're going to snap it right there. We're going to do this throughout the clips now. You'll notice too, when you name something and you copy and paste it, it'll automatically add a number to it. So you have shakes in order from 1 through 6. So now that we added in all our shakes, let's see what we have now. The shakes add in a great touch. The standard shake right here is one of my favorites. Although I don't always use these presets right here, I do use plugins such as Sapphire. Sapphire has a really good shake, and if you have the budget for it, I highly recommend you get it. Next thing I want to do is add in some transitions. I'm going to see what subtle transitions I can really add in. Right here, the song kind of has a little build up before the drop. So what I want to do is add a reverse shake. I want it to go from no shake to start shaking, and it'll transition into this clip to shake. So here's what it sounds like. So what we're going to do is, we're going to click on our shake layer, we're going to duplicate it, Control C, Control V, or Control D, or Command D. So now, right click, go to time, time reverse layer. Let's snap this to the left side, and let's bring this down to the bottom layer. Now, we have a reverse shake into a shake. So for this first clip, I want to mask out all these cars and have a background. So what we're going to do is, we're going to Control D to duplicate this layer. And now we're going to roto brush. Click on roto brush, double click that layer. You'll notice that it doesn't match up with your time warp, but once you click on it, it'll redo the time warp. So yes, you can roto brush with time warp. Depending on how your time warp is, you might not be able to mask it as well. So what I'm going to want to mask is the whole bottom layer so I can have the background change. So let's go through the roto brush. We're going to go to our roto brush settings. We're going to change this to best, feather, increase it to about 40, reduce chatter to around 90 to 100. Roto brush looks good. Now we're going to freeze it. Now that it's frozen, we can go back into our main composition up here. And now we have this layer to mess with. So you have two options. You can duplicate the mask layer and you can adjust this. Or you can go to the bottom layer and you can adjust this. What I want to do to switch this up and do something a little bit different than what we usually do, I'm going to use the bottom layer and I'm going to keyframe anchor point and I'm going to have it come up right around here. So keyframe it and have it go up. We also want to click on enable motion blur, select these two values, right click, keyframe assistant, easy ease, and I want it to come in fast in the beginning. So we're going to select these, go to our graph editor, and if your graph looks like this, all you have to do is switch it back to speed graph. We'll zoom in on this, hold shift and drag this value all the way to the end, and this one as well. You can keep watching it while you're in the graph editor and adjust as you need. So I do want this a little bit faster, so maybe we will go to 100. To make this even faster, we're going to bring that second keyframe more in. Now that we got this to where we want it to be, I'm also going to switch it up as well. Now that it's to where we want it to be, I'm going to flip the camera angle. So let's go to our bottom layer, right click, go to transform, and flip horizontal. Now it's flipped horizontally. Since this is the first clip of our video as well, we want this to attract people to engage and watch the rest of this video. If you convince them within the first couple seconds that they're interested, then you have a potential new follower and a new fan. For this top layer, let's also keyframe anchor point. So go to the beginning, keyframe anchor point, make sure your motion blur is selected as well. Let's go to the other key point from the bottom layer, and now let's bring this down a little bit. We're going to do the same thing. Select these keyframes, right click, keyframe assistant, easy ease. Go to our graph editor and drag this down with the same value as the bottom ones. So we're going to go 100% influence. The influence is on the yellow little tab that you can see right there. If you see a little bit of rough edges, all you want to do is click on this, go to your rotor brush, and increase your feather. You can also mess with shift edge, which will adjust the edge of your mask. So for this part of the song right here, there's some sound effects on this song, and what I envision on this part of the song is the colors to change on these cars. So to do this, we're going to create a new adjustment layer right above the main layer. We'll trim it up. Let's start with the first beat marker, which will be 8. So we're going to have one color change for the red car, one color change for the blue car, and the last one will be them both going back to original colors. So to do this, we're going to use the effect called hue and saturation. Depending on the color of your car, you might have to mask it, but since these cars have a vibrant color, we're able to use this effect of hue and saturation. So let's change the master into reds, and let's see if it adjusts the reds. So it's adjusting the reds and a little bit more than the reds, so we have to dial in right here on the range. So let's bring this down. Let's try to keep it in the range of the reds. So right here works pretty well. So what we're going to do is set this hue value to 0. We're going to keyframe channel range, press U to view our keyframes. We're going to go to the end of this layer, and let's change the hue. Maybe we'll swap this one to blue and this one to red. This is a very short adjustment layer as well. Let's drag this out to the last key marker. We do want this to change to blue right away. The way we're going to do this is by easy easing. Right click, keyframe assistant, ease, go to our graph editor, and let's drag this to the beginning with 100% influence. Now, let's duplicate this layer, left bracket to snap it, and now we're going to do the blue car. So now what we're going to have to do is open our keyframes. Let's unkeyframe this and reset it. So now we're going to go to blues, but if you see when I adjust this, it will adjust the other blue we did. So let's make sure this adjustment layer is below. So now that it has the blue selected, let's dial in the channel range as well to make sure we get all of it. Set our hue to 0. Same thing, keyframe the channel range from no change. Go towards the end, and let's change it to red. I'm going to increase the saturation a little bit too, since the blue is dark, and the lightness. We'll select these keyframes, right click, keyframe assistant, easy ease, graph editor with 100% influence. Now that we can see the effects and what they look like, I want this blue to stay until the end of this clip as well. So let's drag out one of our adjustment layers. So this car stays blue as well, and this one stays red. And let's select both of these, drag them out just a little bit longer. We'll set both the hues back to 0. For this top layer, since I don't want it to change until the bottom layer changes as well, we're going to copy and paste our hue change keyframe. So we'll highlight this, Control C, Control V. Now they'll go back at the same time. Let's see what we got so far, and then let's see what else we can add into this video. So now that we have this done, let's move on and add some more effects right here. The effect we're going to add in is called optics compensation. So let's make another adjustment layer, trim it up, and we'll add it to around where the shake is. So go to your effects and look up optics. It'll warp in, but to fix this, we're going to reverse it and click on reverse lens distortion. So let's set this to 0 in the beginning, keyframe the FOV, go towards the end to where you can still see it, increase the FOV. Usually I like to do it right around here. If you go too much, it'll just be too much distortion. So let's go right around here, open U, drag that keyframe to the end. Same thing as always, keyframe assistant, easy ease, and we want this to ease out. So we're going to go into the graph editor, we're going to switch it to value graph, bring the top keyframe all the way in by holding shift, Go to the bottom keyframe and bring that all the way out too. Sometimes when you easy ease it a little bit too aggressive, you won't notice it too much. So little trick, instead of having your keyframe all the way at the end, have it one frame before. Adjust it as you need to. So far, we have a very clean edit with subtle effects. Let's see what it looks like overall and see what else we really want to add in. I'm going to add in some simple transitions that we learned from course 2. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this layer right here. I'm going to go to time, freeze frame. I'm going to unclick time warp now that we're frozen. If you try to do any effects while time warp's on there and freeze frame, it might not work. So make sure you uncheck time warp. Let's go to our mask tool. Let's quickly mask our object. Press F to open up your feather on that mask. I like to set this to around 5. Make sure you select your motion blur and make sure your motion blur layer is available. If you don't see this, make sure you click toggle switches and modes. Now let's drag this out around 5 frames. We'll delete the right side. Press A for anchor point. We want our original anchor point to be right at the end because this is where it starts at. Now go to the beginning of that transition and let's bring this up. If you don't bring it up and you do left to right, it won't look too good since half the car is missing. So in this case, we're limited to up or down. So we'll bring it up and let's see what it looks like. It's a nice little clean transition that helps with the shake, and I'm going to do this for the next clip as well. So we'll duplicate, time, freeze frame, disable time warp, mask our layer. Remember, this can be a rough mask since it is going to be a very quick transition and there is motion blur to hide any imperfections. Press F for feather, change that to 5, make sure our motion blur is on, drag out 5 frames, delete the right side, A for anchor point, your original anchor point's at the end, go to the beginning, and we'll go up. And if you can't see any of these outlines, make sure you have this toggled. If you don't have this toggled, you won't be able to see any masks or the end of your frames.